The patrol car's radio crackled with routine calls that December evening, when suddenly tiny fists pounded against Officer Mason Cole's window. Through the frost-covered glass, he saw her a child, no more than 6 tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face, her breath forming desperate clouds in the freezing air. "Please," she sobbed, grabbing his sleeve as he stepped out. "Please follow me home. Mama won't wake up." In that moment, as Mason looked into those terrified eyes, he had no idea this little girl's plea would unravel a story of courage, community, and survival that would transform an entire neighborhood. I'm about to share with you what happened that night in Riverton, and I promise you'll never look at a child's bravery the same way again. So settle in, and please comment below what city you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story travels. The winter darkness had already swallowed Riverton's streets when Officer Mason Cole turned onto Maple Avenue, the older section of town where paint peeled from houses like dead skin and streetlights flickered more than they shone. He'd been on patrol for 6 hours straight, the kind of shift where the cold seeps through your uniform no matter how many layers you wear, and the coffee from the station had long since turned to acid in his stomach. Mason reached for the radio dial, hoping for something other than static, when the pounding started sharp, desperate strikes against his passenger window that made him slam the brakes. His hand instinctively moved to his holster before he saw her, a small girl, maybe 6 years old, her thin jacket hanging open despite the 20-degree weather, her small fists bare red from hitting the glass. "Help!" she screamed. Her voice muffled, but the panic unmistakable. "Please help!" Mason immediately killed the engine and stepped out, his breath visible in the frigid air. The girl backed away slightly, as if suddenly afraid she'd made a mistake, but her eyes wide and swimming with tears never left his face. Hey, it's okay," Mason said, dropping to one knee on the icy pavement, bringing himself to her eye level. The move sent a sharp pain through his bad knee, the one that never quite healed right from that chase 3 years back. But he ignored it. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Lily, she stammered, her teeth chattering violently. "Lily Hart." "Okay, Lily. I'm Officer Cole, but you can call me Mason." He kept his voice steady, calm. The voice he'd practiced in the mirror after the Jenkins incident, after the department psychologist told him he needed to work on seeming less intimidating to children. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" She shook her head violently, sending her tangled brown hair flying. "It's Mama. She won't wake up and she's making weird sounds, and I tried everything and—" The words tumbled out in a rush before dissolving into sobs. Mason felt his training kick in, that familiar surge of adrenaline, tempered by forced calm. "Where's your Mama, Lily?" "Home, our apartment. Please, you have to follow me home." Without hesitation, Mason stood and reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I have a possible medical emergency, juvenile reporting unresponsive adult, requesting EMS to stand by for address confirmation." "Copy, Unit 23. EMS on standby." He looked back at Lily, who was already tugging at his sleeve, trying to pull him down the street. "How far is your home, Lily?" "Just there." She pointed down the dimly lit street. The yellow building with the broken sign. Mason could see it, a 3-story apartment complex about 2 blocks away, the kind of place where the landlords did just enough maintenance to avoid condemnation. Half the letters in Riverside Apartments had fallen off, leaving it to read Rive Ide A.R. Ents. "Okay, let's go," Mason said, but then stopped. "Lily, is there anyone else at home? Any adults?" She shook her head. "Just me and Mama." They moved quickly down the sidewalk, Lily's worn sneakers slapping against the concrete as she half ran, half stumbled forward. Mason matched her pace, noting details automatically, no signs of physical abuse on the child clothes worn, but clean, she knew her full name and address, good signs amidst the crisis. "Tell me about the weird sounds your Mama's making," Mason said as they hurried along. Like Like when our neighbor Mr. Chen had that attack and they took him away in the ambulance. Wheezing. But worse. Lily's voice cracked. I tried to give her water, but she wouldn't drink it. They reached the building's entrance, a heavy door with a broken lock that hung perpetually open. The hallway reeked of mold and something else. Something Mason recognized from too many welfare checks, poverty. That particular mixture of cooking grease desperation and dreams deferred. Second floor, Lily gasped, taking the stairs two at a time despite her short legs. Mason followed, radioing in the address as they climbed. Dispatch location is 427 Riverside Apartments Unit. He looked at Lily. 2B, she called back. Unit 2B, requesting immediate EMS response. Roger, Unit 23. EMS en route ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes. In medical emergencies, 4 minutes could be a lifetime, or the end of one. Lily fumbled with a key hanging on a string around her neck, her small fingers shaking so badly she couldn't get it in the lock. Mason gently took it from her, noting how the door was already slightly ajar. The wood frame splintered around the lock, as if it had been forced open before, and never properly repaired. The apartment hit him with a wave of cold, colder than outside somehow. The heat was either off or broken. Overdue notices covered a small table by the door, like a deck of cards spread for a losing hand. The living room was sparse but clean. A sagging couch covered with a handmade quilt, a small TV on a milk crate, children's drawings taped to every available wall surface. Mama's room, Lily whispered, pointing down a narrow hallway. The sound reached him before they got to the doorway, labored wet breathing that made Mason's chest tighten with memory. The Jenkins boy had sounded like that right before. He pushed the thought away and entered the bedroom. Ava Hart lay on a twin mattress on the floor, no bed frame covered in what looked like every blanket in the apartment. Even in the dim light from a single lamp, Mason could see her lips had a bluish tinge. Her chest rose and fell in rapid, shallow movements, and with each exhale came that distinctive wheeze that screamed respiratory distress. Mason dropped beside her, his fingers finding her pulse rapid and thready. Her skin was simultaneously clammy and burning hot. Ma'am Ava, can you hear me? A slight flutter of eyelids, but no real response. How long has she been like this, Lily? Since yesterday morning. But she said she was okay, just tired. She's always tired after her shifts. Lily hovered in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. She works at night cleaning offices. 3 jobs. She said she just needed to sleep. Mason's radio crackled. Unit 23 EMS is 2 minutes out. 2 minutes. He looked at Ava's laboring chest, at the way her fingers had started to take on that same bluish tinge as her lips. 2 minutes might be too long. Lily, I need you to be very brave for me, okay? Mason said, already working to prop Ava up slightly to ease her breathing. Go downstairs and wait by the door. When you see the ambulance, wave them up here. Can you do that? She nodded, but didn't move. Is Mama going to die? The question hung in the cold air between them. Mason had learned the hard way that lying to children in these moments did more harm than good. I'm going to do everything I can to help her, and the paramedics are the best in the city. But right now, I need you to help me by getting them up here as fast as possible. Lily nodded again this time, with determination replacing some of the fear in her eyes. She turned and ran, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. Alone with Ava. Mason did what he could, loosened clothing around her neck, checked for any obvious obstructions to her breathing, monitored her pulse. The apartment was so quiet he could hear the drip of a leaky faucet from what must be the bathroom, counting seconds between drops like a failing metronome. His eyes swept the room, taking in details, a work uniform hanging on a doorknob, industrial cleaning company logo on the pocket. A small table serving as a nightstand held 3 prescription bottles, all empty, all with dates from 6 months ago. Antibiotics from the labels, never refilled. "Come on, Ava," he muttered. "Your little girl needs you." That's when he saw it, a piece of paper on the floor beside the mattress, like it had fallen from her hand. A paycheck stub. Mason picked it up, his stomach dropping as he read the numbers. 40 hours of work, minimum wage, minus taxes, minus a garnishment for some old debt. The take-home amount wouldn't cover even half of the overdue notices he'd seen in the living room. The sound of feet pounding up the stairs brought him back. The EMS team burst in 2 paramedics. Mason recognized Chen and Rodriguez, already pulling out equipment. "Female approximately mid-20s, severe respiratory distress," Mason reported, moving aside. "Possible pneumonia untreated, been symptomatic for at least 24 hours. Chen immediately placed an oxygen mask while Rodriguez started checking vitals. "Jesus, she's burning up. Core temps 103.8. "We need to move her now," Chen said, already preparing the stretcher. That's when Lily reappeared in the doorway, her small face pale with terror. She's very sick, sweetie," Rodriguez said gently, while Chen worked. "We're taking her to the hospital where they can help her." As they lifted Ava onto the stretcher, she stirred slightly, her eyes opening just enough to focus on Lily. Her lips moved beneath the oxygen mask, and though no sound came out, Mason could read the word baby. "I'm here, Mama," Lily cried, rushing forward. "I'm right here." Ava's hand moved slightly, and Lily grabbed it. "I got help, Mama. I got the police like you always said to do if something bad happened." They had to move. Chen and Rodriguez navigated the narrow hallway with practiced efficiency, Lily refusing to let go of her mother's hand until they reached the stairs where the geometry made it impossible. "I need to go with her," Lily pleaded, looking up at Mason with those huge eyes. Mason made a decision that wasn't entirely by the book. "You're coming with me. We'll follow the ambulance." As the paramedics loaded Ava into the ambulance, Mason noticed something that made his chest tighten. Lily was shivering violently, whether from cold or shock or both. He shrugged off his patrol jacket and wrapped it around her. It swallowed her small frame, the sleeves hanging past her hands, but she pulled it tight like armor. "Unit 23, his radio crackled as he buckled Lily into the back of his patrol car. "We have a situation at 5th and Grand, requiring all available units." Mason looked at Lily in the rearview mirror, then at the ambulance pulling away lights flashing. He picked up the radio. "Dispatch Unit 23 is Code 6 with a juvenile. En route to Mercy General for child welfare situation." "Copy Unit 23. The drive to the hospital took 12 minutes. Lily spent the first 5 in silence, staring out the window at the ambulance ahead of them. Then quietly she asked, "Officer Mason, do you have kids?" "No." Mason answered, then found himself adding, "Not yet." "Mama says I'm her whole world," Lily whispered. If something happens to her, what happens to her whole world?" Mason's throat constricted. He thought about the Jenkins boy again, 8 years old, found his father after an overdose, called 911. Mason had been first on scene. The boy had asked him a similar question, and Mason had given him platitudes about everything being okay. 3 months later, the boy was in his 4th foster home. "Your mama's strong, Lily. She's been working 3 jobs to take care of you. That kind of person doesn't give up easily. She tried to make me soup this morning," Lily said suddenly, even though she could barely stand up. She put the pot on the stove but forgot to turn it on. I found her collapsed next to it. Her voice broke. "I didn't know what to do. I tried to wake her up for so long before I ran outside." "You did exactly the right thing," Mason assured her. "You probably saved her life." They pulled into the hospital emergency bay, just as Chen and Rodriguez were wheeling Ava inside. Mason parked quickly and helped Lily out, her small hand gripping his like a lifeline. The emergency room was controlled chaos. Friday night in Riverton meant the usual mix of accidents, assaults, and medical emergencies. But the triage nurse took one look at Lily in Mason's oversized jacket and immediately understood the situation. "She's with the pneumonia case from Riverside," she asked Mason quietly. He nodded. "Daughter, no other family present." "Waiting room 3, the nurse directed. "It's quieter. I'll have someone from social services come speak with you." Those words, social services, sent a chill through Mason that had nothing to do with the December cold. He knew what they meant. Mandatory reporting. Investigation. The possibility that saving Ava's life might mean losing her daughter. Waiting room 3 was indeed quieter, just an elderly man sleeping in a corner and a woman knitting while watching the mounted TV. Mason bought Lily a juice from the vending machine, watching as she held it without drinking, staring at the emergency department doors. "My friend Sarah's mom went to the hospital once," Lily said suddenly. "When she came back, people from the state came too. They asked a lot of questions. Sarah had to go live with her aunt for a while." She looked up at Mason. "I don't have an aunt." Before Mason could respond, Dr. Patricia Wexler emerged from the emergency department. Mason knew her from other calls. She was good, thorough, didn't talk down to kids. "You must be Lily," she said, crouching down to Lily's level. "I'm Dr. Wexler. I'm taking care of your mom." "Is she okay?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "She's very sick with something called pneumonia. That's an infection in her lungs that makes it hard to breathe. But we're giving her medicine and oxygen, and she's starting to do better." "Can I see her?" "In a little bit, sweetie. We need to get her stable first." Dr. Wexler stood and motioned for Mason to step aside with her. In a low voice, she said, "Severe bilateral pneumonia, probably been developing for at least a week. She's severely dehydrated, malnourished. We're treating her, but this should never have gotten this bad. When we see cases like this, especially with a minor child in the home." She trailed off, but Mason knew what she meant. "The apartment was cold," he said. "Overdue bills everywhere. She's working 3 minimum wage jobs. This isn't neglect, doctor. This is poverty." Wexler's expression softened slightly. "I'm not making judgments, officer, but I'm required to report this. CPS will want to do an assessment." Mason looked back at Lily, who was watching them with those 2 knowing eyes. "How long until Ava can have visitors?" "Give us an hour. Maybe 2. Mason returned to Lily, who had finally taken a sip of her juice. "Your mom's getting the help she needs," he told her. "The doctor says she's already doing better." "But how did a 6-year-old already know there was always a but?" "But it's going to take some time. She's going to need to stay here for a while." Lily nodded slowly. "Where will I go?" The question hung there heavy as the winter clouds outside. Mason's radio crackled again. Another call, another emergency somewhere in Riverton. But looking at this little girl who'd run into the cold to save her mother, who'd been brave enough to flag down a police car, who was now facing the very real possibility of being separated from the only family she had, Mason made another decision that wasn't entirely by the book. "Right now you're staying right here," he said. "I'm not going anywhere until we know your mom's okay and we figure out what's next. Deal?" Lily nodded, and for the first time since she'd pounded on his patrol car window, managed a tiny smile. "Deal." They sat in silence for a moment before Lily spoke again. "Officer Mason, that man who was on your radio, the one who said there was a situation, don't you need to go?" "They have other officers," Mason said. "Right now, my situation is making sure you're okay." "Mama says police officers are heroes," Lily said quietly. "She says if we're ever in real trouble, find a police officer." "Your mama's smart." "She is," Lily agreed. She just gets really tired. She leaves for work after I go to bed and comes home right before I go to school. Then she sleeps a little and goes to her other job. Then she comes home and helps me with homework and makes dinner and reads to me, even though I can tell her eyes want to close. Then she goes to her other job again. The picture Lily painted was heartbreakingly clear. Ava Hart was killing herself trying to keep them afloat, and it still wasn't enough. The pneumonia wasn't just an infection. It was the inevitable result of a body pushed beyond its limits of a system that demanded everything and gave nothing back. Mason's phone buzzed, a text from Sergeant Diaz. "Where the hell are you, Cole? We need units on scene." He typed back, "Child welfare situation. We'll explain later." The response was immediate. "You okay?" Mason looked at Lily, who had curled up in the uncomfortable waiting room chair, his jacket pulled around her like a shield against the world. "Yeah, but I need to see this through." "Copy. Keep me posted." An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. Lily dozed fitfully, waking every time the emergency department doors opened. Mason used the time to make calls to social services to give them a heads up to his partner, to explain his absence to the station, to officially log his status. It was nearing midnight when Dr. Wexler finally returned. "She's stable," she said, and both Mason and Lily sagged with relief. "We've got her on IV antibiotics and fluids. Her fever's coming down. She's awake and asking for you, Lily." They followed the doctor through the maze of corridors to a room in the medical ward. Ava Hart looked small in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, IV in her arm, but her eyes were open and alert. When she saw Lily, tears immediately started rolling down her cheeks. "Baby," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Lily ran to the bed, carefully hugging her mother around all the medical equipment. "I'm sorry, Mama. I'm sorry I had to get help. You said not to tell anyone about—" "No, baby, no." Ava interrupted, her weak hand stroking Lily's hair. "You did perfect. You saved Mama's life. You're my brave girl." She looked up at Mason then, and he saw everything in her eyes: gratitude, fear, shame, exhaustion. "Thank you," she mouthed. "Ma'am," Mason said, stepping forward. "I'm Officer Cole. Lily flagged me down. You've got a very brave daughter." "I know," Ava whispered. "She's everything. She's—" Her eyes started to close again, the medications pulling her under. "It's okay, Mama," Lily said. "Sleep. I'll be here." Dr. Wexler motioned for them to step outside. "She needs rest. The infection is severe. We're looking at least a week of hospitalization, possibly more." "What about Lily?" Mason asked. "That's for CPS to determine. They'll be here in the morning." The doctor paused, studying Mason. "Unless there's a family member who could—" "There's no one," Lily said quietly. They'd both forgotten she was listening. "Mama's parents died when she was young. That's why she says we have to stick together. It's just us." Dr. Wexler's pager went off. She glanced at it and sighed. "I have to go. Officer, can you—" "I'll stay," Mason said without hesitation. As the doctor hurried off, Mason looked down at Lily. "Come on, let's find somewhere more comfortable to wait." They found a family lounge down the hall, couches that had seen better days, a TV playing late-night infomercials, on mute a coffee maker that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. But it was quiet and warm, and Lily curled up on one of the couches, still wearing Mason's jacket. "Officer Mason," she said sleepily, "what happens tomorrow?" Tomorrow. When CPS would come. When decisions would be made about whether Ava Hart was fit to care for her daughter. When the system would start its grinding evaluation of worth and capability based on bank accounts and living conditions rather than love and sacrifice. "Tomorrow we make sure your mom gets better," Mason said, "and we figure out how to help you both." "We don't need help," Lily mumbled, pride evident even through her exhaustion. "Mama says we take care of ourselves." "Everyone needs help sometimes, Lily. That's not weakness. That's human." She considered this. "Do you ever need help?" Mason thought about the Jenkins boy again, about the nightmares that still woke him sometimes, about the mandatory counseling sessions he'd skipped, about the bottle of whiskey in his apartment that called to him after shifts like these. "Yeah," he admitted. "I do." Lily's breathing had evened out sleep, finally claiming her. Mason sat in the uncomfortable chair across from her, watching this small warrior who'd saved her mother's life finally rest. His radio occasionally crackled with calls, the night shift continuing without him, but he didn't move. At 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. "Sergeant Diaz, heard through the grapevine about your situation. Single mom, sick kid. Other way around, sick mom, brave kid. Need anything?" Mason looked at Lily, then thought about that cold apartment, those overdue bills, the 3 jobs that still wouldn't be enough. "Yeah, but I don't know what yet. Keep me posted. And Cole, this is why you're a good cop, not the arrests or the citations. This." Mason put his phone away and leaned back in the chair. Through the window, he could see snow starting to fall, covering Riverton in a deceptive blanket of white that would make everything look clean and new by morning. But underneath the same problems would remain poverty-sickness systems designed to punish rather than support. At 3 a.m., a noise woke him. Lily was sitting up, tears streaming down her face, trying to cry quietly. "Hey," Mason said softly, moving to sit beside her. "What's wrong?" "I had a dream that Mama didn't wake up," she whispered, "that I was too late." "But you weren't too late. You saved her." "This time," Lily said, and the weight of those 2 words from a 6-year-old broke Mason's heart. "But what about next time? What about when she gets sick again because she works too much and doesn't eat enough, and gives me her dinner when there's not enough for both of us?" Mason didn't have an answer for that. How did you explain systemic inequality to a first grader? How did you tell her that her mother's 3 jobs should be enough, but weren't, that the game was rigged against them from the start? "You know what?" he said instead. "Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is ask for help. And maybe what happened tonight isn't an ending. Maybe it's a beginning." "Beginning of what?" "I don't know yet. But your mom's getting medical care now. Doctors are going to help her get better. And maybe we can find other ways to help too." Lily leaned against him, this child who'd had to grow up too fast, who knew too much about overdue bills and empty refrigerators and mothers who worked themselves into hospital beds. "Officer Mason," she said sleepily. "Will you really stay?" "I'll stay," he promised. As dawn approached, painting the hospital corridors with pale winter light, Mason made a decision. He pulled out his phone and started making lists: resources, contacts, possibilities. The local food bank, the community health center that did sliding scale payments, the church that ran an emergency assistance program, his cousin who was a social worker and knew how to navigate systems, because Lily was right there would be a next time. Unless something changed, unless someone decided that this little girl and her mother deserved more than survival, deserved an actual chance. His radio crackled again. "Unit 23? What's your status?" Mason looked at Lily asleep again, but still clutching his jacket like a lifeline. He thought about protocols and procedures, about shifts and responsibilities, about all the reasons he should have left hours ago. "Unit 23 still on scene," he responded. "Situation ongoing." "Copy that." The morning shift would start soon. CPS would arrive. Decisions would be made. But for now, in this quiet moment before the machinery of bureaucracy started grinding, Mason Cole sat guard over a little girl who'd been brave enough to save her mother and promised himself that somehow, some way, he'd help save them both. The snow continued to fall outside, covering Riverton's scars and struggles, but in the family lounge of Mercy General Hospital, a police officer kept watch over a child, and for just a moment, the world felt a little less cold. The morning sun hadn't yet broken through the hospital windows when Mason heard footsteps in the hallway. He'd dozed off in the chair, but years of patrol had trained him to wake at the slightest disturbance. Lily was still curled on the couch, his jacket serving as both blanket and shield. The footsteps stopped outside their door, and Mason recognized the deliberate pause of someone checking a room number against paperwork. The door opened, and a woman entered carrying a tablet and wearing the kind of sensible pantsuit that screamed government worker. Her badge read, Patricia Holden Child Protective Services. She was younger than Mason expected, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes that suggested she'd seen too much too soon in her career. "Officer Cole?" she asked quietly, noticing Lily still asleep. "I'm Pat Holden. I understand you've been with the child since last night." Mason stood his back, protesting from hours in the uncomfortable chair. "That's right. Lily Hart. Her mother Ava is in room 302, severe pneumonia." Pat nodded, already swiping through files on her tablet. "I've reviewed the initial report. Mother found unresponsive child, sought help, apartment conditions concerning." She looked up. "I'll need to speak with both of them." "Ava's barely conscious," Mason said. "The infection nearly killed her. She needs rest." "I understand, but I have protocols to follow. A child was left in a potentially dangerous situation." "A child saved her mother's life," Mason interrupted, his voice sharper than intended. Lily stirred on the couch and he lowered his voice. "Look, I've been in that apartment. Yes, it's cold. Yes, there are overdue bills. But it's clean, there's food, not much, but some. And that little girl is loved. Ava Hart is working 3 jobs trying to keep them afloat." Pat's expression softened slightly. "Officer, I'm not the enemy here. My job is to ensure Lily's safety and well-being. That includes understanding the full situation." She paused, studying him. "You've been here all night." Someone needed to stay with her. "That's unusual. Most officers would have handed off to hospital security or social services hours ago." Mason thought about explaining about the Jenkins boy and the promises he'd made to himself after that night, but instead he just said, "She asked me to stay." Pat set down her tablet and really looked at him for the first time. "Tell me what you observed. Off the record, officer to social worker. What's really going on here?" Mason glanced at Lily, confirming she was still asleep, then moved closer to Pat. "Ava Hart is 24 years old. From what I can piece together, she's been on her own since she was a teenager. No family support. She's working 3 minimum wage jobs, night cleaning at office buildings, day shifts at a grocery store, weekend work at a laundromat. Even with all that, she's barely making rent on an apartment that should probably be condemned. The father, no indication he's ever been in the picture. Lily doesn't mention him, and there's no male presence in the apartment, no photos, no men's clothes, nothing." Pat was taking notes now, but her eyes remained on Mason. "And the child's condition?" "Loved," Mason said immediately. "Fed. I saw her school lunch forms on the counter, all filled out properly. Her clothes are worn but clean. The walls are covered with her drawings, each one dated and labeled in Ava's handwriting. There's a homework chart on the refrigerator. This isn't neglect, Ms. Holden. This is poverty." "Sometimes they look the same to the system," Pat admitted quietly. "But I still need to do an assessment. If the mother can't provide a safe environment, then we help her provide one," Mason said. "We don't punish her for being poor by taking away the one thing she's fighting to keep." Before Pat could respond, Lily woke with a start, immediately looking around in panic until she saw Mason. "Is Mama okay?" "She's fine, sweetheart. Still sleeping." and he moved to sit beside her. "Lily, this is Ms. Holden. She's here to make sure you and your mom have everything you need." Lily's eyes narrowed with suspicion beyond her years. "You're from the state. Sarah told me about people from the state." Pat knelt down to Lily's level, a practiced move that probably worked with most kids. But Lily wasn't most kids. "I'm here to help Lily. Can you tell me about living with your mom?" "She takes good care of me," Lily said immediately defensively. "She makes sure I have breakfast even when she doesn't eat. She helps with my homework even when she's so tired she can barely keep her eyes open. She reads to me every night even when she has to leave for work right after." "What about when she's at work? Who watches you?" Lily hesitated, and Mason saw the calculation in her young eyes, truth or lie, which would help her mother more. "Mrs. Chen next door checks on me, and I know all the important numbers. Mama taught me." Pat made a note. "And what about heat?" "Your apartment was very cold." "The landlord won't fix it," Lily said. "Mama called him lots of times. She even wrote letters. But he says if we complain too much, he'll evict us, and Mama says we can't afford anywhere else." The casual cruelty of it, delivered in a 6-year-old's matter-of-fact tone, made Mason's fists clench. Pat noticed and gave him a warning look before continuing. "Lily, has your mom been sick long?" "She's been coughing for maybe 2 weeks, but she said it was just a cold that she couldn't afford to miss work." Lily's voice cracked. "I heard her crying in the bathroom yesterday morning. She was coughing so hard she threw up, but she still got dressed for work. Then she collapsed." "You did the right thing getting help," Pat assured her. "You're a very brave girl." "Everyone keeps saying that," Lily said, frustration creeping into her voice. "I don't want to be brave. I want Mama to be okay. I want to go home." Pat stood, picking up her tablet again. "I need to see your mother now, Lily. Officer Cole, could you?" "I want to come," Lily interrupted. "Please, I promise I'll be quiet." Pat looked like she was about to refuse, but Mason intervened. "It might help Ava to see that Lily's okay. Reduce her stress levels, help her recovery." After a moment's hesitation, Pat nodded. They made their way down the corridor to room 302, where Ava was awake, but clearly weak. Her eyes immediately found Lily relief flooding her pale face. "Baby," she whispered. Lily ran to the bed, but stopped just short, remembering all the equipment. "Hi, Mama. This lady wants to talk to you." Ava's expression shifted as she noticed Pat's badge fear replacing relief. "No," she said, trying to sit up despite the oxygen tubes. "No, please, I can explain." "Mrs. Hart, please stay calm," Pat said. "I'm not here to take Lily away. I'm here to assess your situation and determine what support you might need." "I don't need support," Ava said, though her weak voice undermined the assertion. "I just need to get better and get back to work." "Your daughter says you're working 3 jobs." Ava nodded defiant, despite her weakness. "I do what I have to do." "And it's killing you," Mason said bluntly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Sorry, but someone needs to say it. You're 24 years old with pneumonia that should have been treated a week ago. You're malnourished, exhausted, and living in an apartment without proper heat in December. This isn't sustainable." Tears started rolling down Ava's cheeks. "You think I don't know that? You think I like working myself to death? But what choice do I have? If I work less, we can't make rent. If we lose the apartment, I lose Lily. Everything I do is for her." "I know," Pat said, her professional demeanor softening. "Ava. Can I call you Ava? I've seen your type of case before. You're doing everything right but still drowning because the system is broken. 3 jobs should be more than enough, but minimum wage hasn't kept up with cost of living." "So what happens now?" Ava asked, her hand finding Lily's and holding tight. "You take her while I'm in here." Pat was quiet for a moment, consulting her tablet. "There are options. Is there anyone who could care for Lily temporarily?" Family friends? There's no one, Ava said quietly. My parents died in a car accident when I was 17. No siblings. Lily's father. She trailed off, glancing at her daughter. He didn't want us, Lily said matter-of-factly. Mama told me. He left before I was born. That's okay, though. We don't need him. The room fell silent, except for the steady beep of monitors and the distant sounds of hospital life. Mason watched Pat's face as she processed everything. Saw the moment she made a decision. Here's what I'm going to do, Pat said. I'm placing this case under what we call family preservation status. The goal isn't separation. It's keeping you together while addressing the underlying issues. But Ava, you need to work with me. That means accepting help. What kind of help? Ava asked suspiciously. For starters, emergency financial assistance. There are programs you likely qualify for, but haven't applied to SNAP benefits heating assistance Medicaid for both you and Lily. There's also a program that provides childcare vouchers so you wouldn't have to leave Lily alone while you work. I've tried applying for things, Ava said. They said I make too much with 3 jobs. That's where a good social worker comes in, Pat said with a small smile. I know the loopholes the appeals process which forms to file, but first we need to address immediate concerns. Lily needs somewhere safe to stay while you recover. Foster care? Ava said the words like poison in her mouth. Emergency placement, Pat corrected. Temporary with regular visitation. Unless... She turned to Mason. Officer Cole, you mentioned you've been here all night. That's unusual dedication. Mason saw where she was going. I'm not a registered foster parent. I can't... No, but hospitals have temporary guardian protocols for situations like this. If Ava agrees, you could be designated as Lily's temporary guardian while she's hospitalized, avoiding the foster system entirely. You'd need to commit to daily visits here, ensure Lily gets to school basic care. Lily's head whipped toward Mason, hope blazing in her eyes. Would you? Mason looked at Ava, seeing the war playing out on her face. Pride versus pragmatism, fear versus hope. It would just be until you're released, he said. Lily could visit you every day. I'd make sure she keeps up with school homework, and it keeps her out of the system. Why? Ava asked, studying him intently. Why would you do this? You don't know us. Mason thought about the real answer about guilt and ghosts and promises made to himself in dark moments. But what he said was, because Lily was brave enough to ask for help. The least I can do is be brave enough to give it. Ava looked at her daughter, then back at Mason. You promise she can visit every day, twice a day if the doctors allow it. And when I get out, you go home together, Pat interjected. Assuming we can address the safety concerns. The heat needs to be fixed, you need to be medically stable, and we need a plan to prevent this from happening again. Ava closed her eyes, and for a moment, Mason thought she'd refuse. Pride was sometimes all people had left. But then she opened them and nodded. Okay, but I want it in writing, everything. The temporary guardianship, the visitation, the plan for reunification. Of course, Pat said, already pulling up forms on her tablet. I'll drop the paperwork now. As Pat worked, Mason's phone buzzed. Sergeant Diaz. Cole, where the hell are you? Your shift started an hour ago. He stepped into the hallway to call his sergeant. Diaz, I need to talk to you. Talk. Mason explained the situation, Lily, Ava, the temporary guardianship, all of it. There was a long pause when he finished. You realize what you're signing up for, Diaz finally said. This isn't just babysitting for a few hours. This is full responsibility for a traumatized kid while her mom's in the hospital. I know. And when the mom gets out, you can't save everyone, Cole. You couldn't save the Jenkins kid either. The words stung because they were true. Maybe not, but I can try to save this one. Another pause. How much time do you need? A week, maybe 2. However long Ava's hospitalized. Jesus Christ, Cole. But there was affection in the frustration. Fine, I'll put you on administrative leave, family emergency. You've got enough saved up. But Cole, don't let this consume you. And if you need help, I'll ask. Mason promised, though they both knew he probably wouldn't. When he returned to the room, Pat had a stack of digital forms ready. Officer Cole, I need you to read and sign these. You're accepting temporary physical custody of Lily Hart with daily supervised visitation with her mother, ending upon Ava Hart's discharge from medical care. Mason read through everything, carefully aware of Lily watching him anxiously. The paperwork was straightforward, but the weight of it was enormous. He was about to become responsible for a 6-year-old girl who'd already been through more than most adults. Lily, he said, crouching down to her level. This is a big decision. You'd be staying at my apartment while your mom gets better. It's nothing fancy, probably not much bigger than your place. But it's warm, and you'd see your mom every day. Is that okay with you? Lily looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly, despite the tears on her cheeks. Will you make me go to school? Every day. Will you help with homework? I'll try, but I should warn you I'm terrible at math. That got a small smile. Mama's terrible at math too. I usually help her. She took a deep breath, seeming to come to a decision. Okay. Mason signed the forms, officially becoming Lily Hart's temporary guardian. Pat witnessed them, then turned to Ava. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss next steps, the programs we talked about, housing advocacy, job training opportunities. You focus on getting better. As Pat left, Ava motioned for Mason to come closer. I don't know you, she whispered, weak but fierce. But that little girl is everything to me. If anything happens to her, nothing will happen to her, Mason promised. You have my word. Ava studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Lily, baby, you be good for Officer Cole, okay? Do your homework, brush your teeth. All our rules still apply. Yes, Mama. And remember, this is just for a little while. Mama's going to get better, and then we'll be together again. They stayed for another hour until Ava's medications pulled her back toward sleep. As they prepared to leave, Lily carefully kissed her mother's forehead. Love you to the moon, Mama. And back again, baby. Ava mumbled the response, automatic, even in her medicated haze. Walking out of the hospital into the bright December morning, Lily's hand in his, Mason, felt the weight of what he'd just committed to. He had no idea how to take care of a 6-year-old. His apartment was a bachelor's disaster. He didn't even have kid-appropriate food. Officer Mason, Lily said as they reached his patrol car. I don't have any clothes, or my backpack for school. Right. Logistics. We'll stop by your apartment and get your things. The drive back to Riverside Apartments was quiet. Lily staring out the window at the city waking up. The morning shift was in full swing. People waiting at bus stops, shops opening, the endless rhythm of survival that kept places like Riverton moving. The apartment was even colder in daylight, if that was possible. Mason could see his breath as they climbed the stairs. The door was still unlocked from their rush the night before. I'll pack, Lily said, with the efficiency of someone used to taking care of herself. She disappeared into a small room off the main hallway, her bedroom, Mason realized, following her. It was tiny, maybe 6 by 8 feet, but it was clearly Lily's sanctuary. The walls were covered in drawings and school certificates, student of the month, perfect attendance, most improved reader. A small bookshelf made of planks and cinder blocks held a collection of library books, all with due dates carefully marked on a homemade calendar. Lily pulled out a worn duffel bag and started packing with heartbreaking efficiency. 3 changes of clothes, all clean but clearly second-hand, her school uniform a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. "Is that everything?" Mason asked. She hesitated, then went to her pillow and pulled out a small photo album. "Mama made this for me," she said, showing him pages of carefully arranged photos, Ava and Lily at a park at what looked like a free community Christmas event outside the library. In every photo, despite their obvious poverty, they were smiling. "Bring it," Mason said. "Bring anything that's important to you." Lily added a few more things. A notebook she wrote stories in a painted rock that she said was from The Good Day at the Beach. Mason didn't ask what made it good versus bad. And a music box that played a tinny version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. "Mama sings that to me when I can't sleep," she explained. They gathered school supplies, Lily's medications from the bathroom, children's vitamins, clearly carefully rationed, and were about to leave when Mason noticed something on the kitchen counter, an envelope marked "Rent" with cash inside. "How much is your rent?" he asked Lily. $800. Mama saves all month for it." Mason counted the cash, $780, 20 short. The eviction notice next to it was dated 3 days ago. He made a decision and pulled out his wallet, adding $100 to the envelope and writing "December rent paid in full" on the outside. "Why did you do that?" Lily asked. "Because your mom has enough to worry about." As they drove to Mason's apartment across town, not far in miles, but a world away in circumstances, Lily was quiet. Then suddenly she said, "Kids at school say cops are bad, that they hurt people and take parents away." Mason considered his response carefully. "Sometimes cops do bad things. We're human, and humans make mistakes. Some make worse mistakes than others, but most of us were trying to help. We're trying to make things better." "You're making things better," Lily said simply. "You stayed." They pulled up to Mason's building, a converted warehouse that had been turned into lofts during Riverton's brief attempted gentrification. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, warm, and the landlord actually fixed things when they broke. "Welcome to Casa Cole," Mason said, trying for levity as they climbed to the 3rd floor. "Fair warning, I wasn't expecting company." That was an understatement. His apartment looked like what it was, the home of a single cop who worked too much and took care of himself too little. Empty beer bottles on the counter, he quickly moved those a week's worth of mail scattered on the table, a refrigerator containing condiments, expired milk, and half a pizza of questionable age. But Lily's eyes went wide. "It's so warm," she breathed, holding her hands out like she was standing before a fireplace. "And big." It wasn't big, maybe 900 square feet, but Mason realized that compared to their apartment, it must seem palatial. "The couch pulls out into a bed," he said. "That'll be yours. Tomorrow we'll get you proper bedding and stuff." "Stuff? Whatever 6-year-olds need. I honestly have no idea." That got a small giggle, the first truly childlike sound he'd heard from her. "You're not very good at this, are you?" "Terrible," Mason admitted. "But I'm good at learning. Think you can teach me?" Lily considered this seriously. "I can try." They spent the rest of the morning establishing a routine. Mason cleared out a drawer for Lily's clothes, set up the pull-out bed with the least scratchy sheets he could find, and made a grocery list based on Lily's patient explanations of what kids actually ate. "Not just cereal," she informed him seriously. "Mama says that's not nutritious, but also vegetables that taste good, like carrots, not Brussels sprouts. Nobody likes Brussels sprouts." "Noted. No Brussels sprouts." At noon, they returned to the hospital. Ava was awake and slightly stronger, able to sit up without getting winded. Her whole face lit up when she saw Lily. "Tell me everything," she demanded. "Did you eat? Did you get your homework? Is Officer Cole's place okay?" As Lily chattered about Mason's apartment, He only has one towel, Mama, and it's scratchy. Mason stepped into the hallway to make calls. First to the elementary school, explaining Lily's situation and arranging for her to return tomorrow. Then to legal aid about the eviction notice. Then to his cousin Maria, the social worker. "You did what?" Maria said when he explained. "Mason, honey, I love your heart, but you can't just take in a kid because you feel bad. It's temporary. It's never just temporary. These situations, they get complicated. What if Mom doesn't get better? What if she can't work when she gets out? What if—" "Then I'll deal with it," Mason interrupted. "But right now today I'm keeping a 6-year-old out of foster care. Can you help me or not?" Maria sighed. "Fine. I'll send you a list of resources. Food banks, clothing exchanges, after-school programs, and Mason therapy for the kid. She's been through trauma." "For both of us," Mason muttered. "What? Nothing. Send the list." When he returned to the room, Dr. Wexler was there, examining Ava. "The antibiotics are working," she announced. "Your fever's down, oxygen levels improving. But Ava, you're severely malnourished. When's the last time you had a proper meal?" Ava's cheeks flushed. "I eat." "When Mama?" Lily asked. "You always say you ate at work, but I never see you eat." "I eat enough." Dr. Wexler's expression was kind but firm. "Your body is eating itself, Ava. That's why the pneumonia hit so hard your immune system is compromised. We're going to start you on a nutritional supplement program, but when you get out, you need to prioritize your own health too." "Hard to prioritize health when you're choosing between food and rent," Ava said quietly. "Which is why we're going to connect you with resources," Dr. Wexler said. "This doesn't have to be your normal." After the doctor left, they spent the afternoon together, Lily doing homework while sitting on her mother's bed. Mason helping when he could, Lily was right. He was terrible at math. It felt almost normal, like a strange little family brought together by crisis. Around 4 o'clock, Pat Holden returned with a man in a rumpled suit who introduced himself as James Washington from Legal Aid. "I've reviewed your case, Ms. Hart," he said. "The eviction notice isn't legal. Your landlord failed to follow proper procedure. Moreover, failing to provide adequate heat violates habitability standards. We can fight this." "I can't afford a lawyer," Ava said immediately. "That's what legal aid means," James said with a smile. "Free legal representation for those who qualify, which you definitely do. But more importantly, we might be able to get you into transitional housing somewhere better with working heat for the same or less rent." "That exists?" Ava asked skeptically. "It does, but the waiting lists are long, and the application process is complicated. That's where I come in." As the adults talked logistics, Mason watched Lily. She was drawing in her notebook, but he could see her listening to every word, processing adult problems no 6-year-old should have to understand. He moved closer, looking at her drawing. It was their little group in the hospital room, but everyone was smiling and surrounded by hearts. "That's nice," he said. "It's how I want to remember today," Lily said. "Even though Mama's sick, we're all together and people are helping. That doesn't happen much." "It should happen more," Mason said. "Then why doesn't it?" He didn't have a good answer for that. As evening approached, they had to leave hospital visiting hours and Lily's bedtime. The goodbye was harder this time, maybe because the adrenaline had worn off and reality was setting in. "Just a few more days, baby," Ava promised, though the doctor had said at least a week. "Be good for Officer Cole." "Mason," he corrected. "Just Mason is fine." Ava met his eyes. "Mason, thank you. I know you don't have to do this." "Yeah," he said. "I do." Back at his apartment, Mason attempted to make dinner mac and cheese from a box about the extent of his culinary skills. Lily ate without complaint, but he caught her adding extra butter when she thought he wasn't looking. "Mama makes it with real cheese sometimes," she said, "when we have extra money." "How often is that?" Not much, but she always makes birthdays special. Last year she saved for 2 months to buy ingredients for a real cake, not from a box. They settled into an evening routine. Lily took a bath in Mason's admittedly gross bachelor bathroom, put on pajamas that were really just an oversized t-shirt, and curled up on the pull-out bed with her stuffed rabbit. "Mason," she said, as he was about to turn off the light. "Do you think Mama will really get better?" "The doctors say she will. But after? Will things be different? Or will she just get sick again?" Mason sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know," he admitted. "But that's why all these people are trying to help now, to make sure things are different. Because I asked you to follow me home. Because you were brave enough to ask for help." Lily was quiet for a moment. "I wasn't brave. I was scared." "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what needs to be done despite being scared." She considered this. "Then Mama's the bravest person I know. She's scared all the time, but she never stops trying." "You're right," Mason said. "She is brave, and so are you." He turned off the light, but left the bathroom light on with the door cracked. Lily had quietly admitted to being afraid of the dark. As he settled onto his own couch with a beer and paperwork, he could hear her humming softly to herself. Somewhere over the rainbow, just like her music box. His phone buzzed with texts, his partner checking in, Maria sending resource lists, Diaz making sure he hadn't completely lost his mind, but also unexpected ones other officers who'd heard through the grapevine offering help. Johnson had kids' clothes his daughter had outgrown. Martinez knew someone at the food bank. Chen's wife was a teacher and could help with homework. Maybe that was the answer to Lily's question about why help didn't happen more often. Maybe it wasn't that people didn't want to help, but that they didn't know how, or were afraid to try, or were so overwhelmed by their own struggles they couldn't see past them. But when someone, a 6-year-old girl with more courage than sense, simply asked clearly and desperately, people responded. Mason's laptop dinged with an email from Pat Holden. "Resource packet attached. Also, I've expedited the benefits applications. With any luck, by the time Ava is discharged, we'll have SNAP heating assistance and childcare vouchers approved. The transitional housing application is in process." He forwarded it to Ava's phone so she'd see it when she was able to check. Then noticed another email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Riverside Apartments tenant." He opened it cautiously. "Officer Cole, I heard through the building what you did for the Harts. I'm in 3C, 2 doors down from them. I'm a retired electrician. If someone can get the landlord to approve it, I'll fix their heat for free. It's just a bad thermostat and some wiring issues. 2 hours work max. Bill Morrison." Mason immediately forwarded this to James at Legal Aid, then added his own note. "If the landlord refuses, I'll pay for the repairs myself." A soft whimper from the living room caught his attention. He found Lily curled into a ball, crying in her sleep. He gently shook her shoulder. "Lily, hey, you're okay. You're safe." She woke with a gasp, immediately looking around in panic before remembering where she was. "I dreamed Mama was gone," she whispered. "That I couldn't find her anywhere. She's at the hospital getting better. We'll see her tomorrow." "Promise, promise." But Lily couldn't settle back down, still trembling from the nightmare. Mason remembered something and retrieved Lily's music box from where she'd carefully placed it on the coffee table. He wound it up and let the tinny melody fill the apartment. "My grandmother used to sing this," he found himself saying. "When my mom worked late and I stayed with her, she said it was about hoping for better things." "Did better things come?" Lily asked. Mason thought about his life, the failures and successes, the saved and the lost, the nights he drank too much, and the mornings he got up anyway to try again. Some did, some didn't, but the hoping was important anyway. "Mama says hope is free," Lily said sleepily. It's the only thing that is. As the music box wound down and Lily's breathing evened out, Mason realized something had shifted in the last 24 hours. This wasn't just about keeping a kid out of foster care anymore. This was about proving that the system could work differently, that community could mean something, that a 6-year-old's plea for help could actually change things. His phone lit up with another text, this time, from an unknown number. Officer Cole, I'm a nurse at Mercy, general friend of Dr. Wexler. Heard about your situation. Off the record, Ava's responding really well to treatment. She's a fighter. Thought you should know. Rachel. Mason looked at Lily, finally peaceful in sleep, clutching her rabbit, and surrounded by the meager possessions that constituted her whole world. Tomorrow, there would be school and hospital visits, and paperwork, and all the complicated logistics of this temporary arrangement. But tonight, in his too-warm apartment that had never felt like home until this moment, a little girl was safe and sleeping and dreaming of somewhere over the rainbow. The twist, when it came at 2 a.m., arrived in the form of another email, this one from the hospital billing department. Despite Pat Holden's assurances about Medicaid and charity care, the automatic systems had kicked in. The subject line was clinical, patient financial responsibility notice. The number at the bottom of the statement made Mason's stomach drop, $47,892.33. And that was just for the first 2 days. Mason stared at the hospital bill on his laptop screen, the number burning into his retinas like staring at the sun. $47,000. He'd seen people's lives destroyed by less. He'd responded to suicide calls over smaller debts. His finger hovered over the forward button to send it to Pat Holden, but something made him hesitate. It was 2 a.m. Lily was finally sleeping peacefully. Adding this stress to Ava's plate right now might literally kill her. He closed the laptop and rubbed his eyes. Tomorrow. He'd deal with it tomorrow. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that number, saw Ava's face. When she'd inevitably learn about it, saw Lily growing up in the shadow of medical debt that would follow them forever. At 4 a.m., he gave up and started researching medical billing advocacy charity care applications, anything that might help. By the time Lily woke at 7, Mason had compiled a folder of resources and sent 3 emails to different advocacy organizations. He'd also made actual breakfast scrambled eggs and toast a significant upgrade from his usual coffee and whatever was in the vending machine at the station. You look tired, Lily observed, surprisingly perceptive for someone who'd just woken up. Just thinking about grown-up stuff, Mason said, sliding a plate in front of her. About Mama, about helping your mama. Lily ate quietly for a moment, then said, She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. About money. She tries to hide it, but I know. Your mom's doing her best. I know. That's what makes it sad. She pushed her eggs around. Mason, what happens if Mama can't work when she gets out? Her boss at the cleaning company said if she misses another shift, she's fired. Mason's jaw tightened. We'll figure it out. That's what all these people helping are for, to figure it out. They arrived at Riverside Elementary at 8:30. Mason had expected to just drop Lily off, but the principal, Mrs. Washington, intercepted them at the entrance. Officer Cole, I need to speak with you about Lily's situation. Lily's hand tightened in his. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, Mrs. Washington assured her, though her expression remained serious. Ms. Rodriguez will take you to class. I just need to talk to Officer Cole. After Lily reluctantly left with the teaching assistant, Mrs. Washington led Mason to her office. The walls were covered with children's artwork and motivational posters that had seen better decades. We received the notification about the temporary guardianship, she said. And while we appreciate you stepping up, there are concerns. What concerns? Lily's missed 12 days of school this semester. She's falling behind in reading. She often comes without lunch money, and we've been covering it from our emergency fund, but that's meant for occasional situations, not everyday feeding. Mason felt anger rising. Her mother's working 3 jobs. I'm not placing blame, Mrs. Washington interrupted. I'm identifying problems. Lily is a bright child, but she's at risk of repeating first grade if something doesn't change. And now with her mother hospitalized, what do you need from me? Consistency. Make sure she's here every day on time. The social worker mentioned possible vouchers for after-school programs. Please pursue those. They provide homework help and snacks. And she hesitated, then pulled out a folder. These are applications for free breakfast and lunch programs. They should have been filled out months ago. Mason took the folder. I'll handle it today. There's one more thing. Mrs. Washington's voice softened. Lily is mature for her age. Too mature. She takes care of herself in ways 6-year-olds shouldn't have to. She needs to be a child, Officer Cole. Whatever happens with this situation, someone needs to let her be a child. Leaving the school, Mason's phone rang. Pat Holden. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Ava's employer, the night cleaning service, just called. They're terminating her employment effective immediately. That's 60% of her income gone. They can't do that. She's in the hospital. They can, and they did. At-will employment, no union protection. But it gets worse. Without that job, she no longer qualifies for their health insurance, which means the retroactive coverage we were counting on won't apply. Mason pulled over his hands, gripping the steering wheel. The hospital bill. You've seen it, $47,000 and counting. Pat was quiet for a moment. This is why people stay sick, Officer Cole. This is why they die. Not because treatment doesn't exist, but because seeking treatment destroys their lives anyway. So what do we do? I'm filing an emergency appeal with Medicaid. James from Legal Aid is looking into whether the termination was legal. There might be protections under FMLA, but that's a long shot. In the meantime, don't tell Ava. Stress could compromise her recovery. We can't not tell her. We can, until she's stronger. One crisis at a time. At the hospital, Ava was sitting up in bed, color returning to her cheeks. Her face lit up when she saw Mason. Where's Lily? School. She wanted to come, but I insisted. She needs normalcy. Thank you. Ava's voice was stronger but still hoarse. For everything. The doctor says maybe 4 more days if I keep improving. Mason forced a smile. That's great news. But Ava was too perceptive. What's wrong? Is Lily okay? Lily's fine. Perfect, actually. She made me breakfast this morning. Apparently I wasn't putting enough butter in the eggs. That got a small laugh. She's particular about her eggs. Then her expression grew serious. Mason, can I call you Mason? I need to ask you something. Why are you doing this, really? Mason sat in the visitor's chair, considering how much truth to share. 3 years ago, I responded to a call. 8-year-old boy named Marcus Jenkins. Found his father overdosed. I was first on scene. Promised him everything would be okay, that we'd take care of him. What happened? Foster system. 4 homes in 3 months. Last I heard, he'd aged out of the system and was living on the streets. Mason met her eyes. I can't fix what happened to Marcus. But maybe I can do better for Lily. Ava's eyes filled with tears. I'm so scared I'm going to lose her. You're not. You don't know that. I see how people look at me, young, single, poor. 3 strikes in their judgment book. And now I'm the mother who nearly died and left her 6-year-old alone. You're the mother who worked herself literally to death trying to provide. That's not neglect, Ava. That's love. Before she could respond, Dr. Wexler entered with a tablet. Good morning. How are we feeling? Better, Ava said. When can I go home? Let's see how the next few days go. Your infection markers are dropping, but you're still very weak. She paused, looking at Mason. Could I speak with you outside for a moment? In the hallway, Dr. Wexler's professional demeanor slipped. I heard about the insurance situation. The billing department is pushing hard. They want a payment plan established before discharge. How much are we talking? If she stays the full week, could be close to $100,000. Mason felt his knees weaken. That's impossible. I know. I'm doing what I can on my end, marking everything as medically necessary, avoiding any procedures that aren't absolutely essential. But Mason, someone needs to get a lawyer involved. This kind of debt will destroy them. Back in the room, Ava was dozing. Mason sat quietly watching her breathe without struggle, and made a decision. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found one he hadn't used in 2 years. Catherine Cole, his older sister, a corporate lawyer in Chicago. She answered on the 3rd ring. Mason. Jesus. What time is it there? Kate, I need help. Are you in trouble? Are you hurt? No, it's not me. He explained everything. Lily, Ava, the medical debt, the lost job, all of it. Kate was quiet for a long moment. You've taken in a stranger's kid? It's complicated. It always is with you. But there was affection in her exasperation. Okay, here's what you do. First, demand an itemized bill from the hospital. Half the time, there are errors or duplicate charges. Second, get everything in writing about the charity care program. Hospitals are required by law to provide a certain amount of free care, they just don't advertise it. Third, file for emergency Medicaid immediately, and I mean today. Retroactive coverage can go back 3 months. Can you help with this? I do corporate law, Mason, not medical advocacy. But, she sighed, I know someone. Rachel Morrison law school friend who specializes in medical debt. I'll call her. Thank you. Mason? This family, they mean something to you. He looked through the window at Ava sleeping, thought about Lily carefully making eggs that morning. Yeah, they do. Be careful, little brother. Your heart's too big for your own good. After she hung up, Mason's phone immediately rang again. The school. Mr. Cole, Lily's had an incident. His stomach dropped. Is she hurt? No, but she's very upset. There was an altercation with another student. Could you come? He found Lily in the principal's office, her face red and tear-stained, her hands clenched into tiny fists. A boy sat across from her with a bloody nose, his mother glaring daggers. She attacked my son, the woman declared. I did not, Lily protested. He said... She cut herself off, looking at Mason with pleading eyes. Mrs. Washington intervened. According to witnesses, Timothy made comments about Lily's mother. Lily responded physically. What did he say? Mason asked, though he could guess. Timothy's mother huffed. It doesn't matter what he said. Violence is never... He said my mama's a bad mom. Lily exploded. He said that's why she's dying, because God's punishing her for being poor and having me without a dad. The room went silent. Mason knelt beside Lily. Hey, look at me. Is that all he said? Lily shook her head, fresh tears falling. He said I'm going to be taken away and put in a home for kids nobody wants. Mason stood slowly, his police training the only thing keeping his voice level. Mrs. Washington, I assume you'll be addressing the bullying as seriously as you're addressing Lily's response to it, Timothy's mother sputtered. Bullying my son was expressing his opinion. Your son was emotionally abusing a child whose mother is in the ICU, Mason said coldly. A 6-year-old child who's dealing with more trauma than most adults could handle. So yes, she pushed him. And while we'll discuss appropriate responses, maybe you should discuss appropriate behavior with your son. How dare you? I think we all need to calm down, Mrs. Washington interjected. Timothy apologized to Lily. But Mom said, "Now, Timothy." The boy mumbled something that might have been sorry. His mother grabbed his hand and stormed out, muttering about those people. When they were gone, Mrs. Washington sighed. "Lily, hitting is never okay, you understand that?" Lily nodded miserably. "But I understand why you were upset. You're not in trouble, but next time come tell a teacher, okay?" In the car, Lily was quiet until they were almost at the hospital. Then she said, "Timothy's mom is on the PTA. She's always talking about families like ours. She calls us the apartment kids. That's not okay. She's not the only one. Lots of parents don't want their kids playing with us. They think being poor is contagious or something." She paused. "Maybe it is. Maybe that's why you should find someone else to take care of me." Mason pulled over and turned to face her. "Listen to me, Lily Hart. Poverty is not a moral failing. It's not contagious. It's not a punishment. It's a systemic failure that traps good people like your mom. And you're one of the bravest, smartest, strongest kids I've ever met. I'm honored to be taking care of you, and anyone who can't see how special you are is an idiot." You said a bad word. Sometimes bad words are necessary. That got a tiny smile. "Don't tell Mama." Deal. At the hospital, they found Ava awake and anxious. "Pat Holden was here. She said there are complications but wouldn't tell me what. Mason, what's happening?" Mason shot Pat a look they'd agreed not to stress Ava. Pat shrugged apologetically. "Your night job let you go," Mason said gently. "But we're fighting it. James from Legal Aid thinks you might have a case." Ava's face crumbled. "That's 60% of my income? How am I supposed to rent the bills? Oh God, the hospital bills." "Stop," Mason said firmly. "One thing at a time. Your job right now is to get better. Let us handle the rest." "I can't lose this job. I can't." Her breathing was becoming rapid, the monitors starting to beep warnings. Dr. Wexler rushed in. "What's happening?" "Panic attack," Mason said. "She just found out about her job." Dr. Wexler quickly administered a mild sedative. "Ava, you need to calm down. This kind of stress could set back your recovery by days." As the medication took effect, Ava gripped Mason's hand with surprising strength. "Promise me," she whispered. "Whatever happens, Lily stays with you. Not foster care. Promise." "I promise." Her eyes fluttered closed, but not before he saw the tears. In the hallway, Pat Holden was pacing. "I didn't mean to tell her. She asked directly, and I'm legally obligated not to lie." "She's going to find out eventually," Mason said tiredly. "Maybe it's better to deal with it now." "There's more," Pat said. "Good news, actually. The emergency SNAP benefits were approved $300 a month for food, and the heating assistance will cover 3 months of utilities. It's not much, but it's something," Mason finished. "What about the transitional housing? Wait-listed. But James found something interesting in their lease. The landlord's been violating habitability codes for months. If we can document it properly, we might be able to break the lease without penalty and get them into emergency housing." "How do we document it? Photos, temperature readings, maintenance requests that were ignored. Can you get into the apartment?" "I have Lily's key." That afternoon, while Lily did homework in the hospital family lounge, Mason returned to Riverside Apartments with his phone and a borrowed thermometer. The temperature inside read 48 degrees. He photographed everything: the broken thermostat, the cracked windows that had been repaired with duct tape, the mold growing in the bathroom, the water stains suggesting long-term leaks. He was taking pictures of the kitchen when he heard a knock. Bill Morrison, the retired electrician from 3C, stood in the doorway. "Saw you come in," Bill said. "Wanted to show you something." He led Mason to the basement where the building's heating system sat like a dying monster held together with patches and prayers. "This whole system's shot," Bill said. "Landlord's been band-aiding it for years. It's not just the Hart's apartment, the whole building's suffering. But their unit's the worst because they're on the corner more exterior walls. Would you be willing to testify to that?" "Testify hell. I'll write a full report. Been documenting this negligence for 2 years hoping someone would care." Mason felt a spark of hope. "Email me everything you have." Back at the hospital, he found Lily reading to her mother, who was awake but groggy. The book was one from the hospital library, something about a mouse who wanted to be a ballet dancer. "The mouse reminds me of you, Mama," Lily was saying. "Everyone said she was too small, but she kept trying." "Did she make it?" Ava asked weakly. "I haven't finished yet, but I think she will. Stories like this always have happy endings." Mason wished real life offered the same guarantee that. Evening, after they'd returned to his apartment, and Lily was doing homework at the kitchen table, Mason's phone rang. Catherine's friend, the medical debt lawyer. "Mr. Cole Rachel Morrison, I've reviewed the case. The hospital bill is actually the easier problem to solve. Hospitals have charity care obligations. With Ava's income level, she qualifies for full forgiveness. The harder issue is the lost income and preventing this cycle from recurring. What do you recommend? First, we file for emergency disability. Pneumonia. This severe qualifies, and it provides income replacement. Second, we appeal the Medicaid denial. I think they calculated her income wrong. Third, and this is crucial, we need to get her connected with workforce development programs. Minimum wage jobs are killing her literally. How long will all this take? Weeks, maybe months? But I can fast-track some of it. Kate's calling in favors. You must mean a lot to her." "It's not me. It's them." "Sure it is," Rachel said knowingly. "I'll file the paperwork tonight. Can you get Ava's signature tomorrow?" "Yes." "Good. And Mr. Cole, what you're doing for this family, it matters. The system forgets that behind every case number is a human being. You're reminding everyone." After dinner, spaghetti that Lily had to teach him how to make properly, they settled into what was becoming their routine. Homework bath story time. But tonight, Lily couldn't settle. "Mason, what if Mama can't work anymore? What if we can't pay rent? What if—" "Hey," he interrupted gently. "What if everything works out? What if your mom gets better and gets a better job and you get to stay together and things get easier? That doesn't happen to people like us. Maybe it's time that changed." Lily considered this. "My teacher says I'm a good writer. Maybe someday I'll write stories where good things happen to apartment kids. I'd read those stories." She was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think I'll remember this when I'm grown up?" "Which part? All of it? Being scared? Mama being sick? You helping us? I don't want to forget even the scary parts." "Why not? Because the scary parts make the good parts matter more." Mason stared at this 6-year-old philosopher. "You're pretty smart, you know that. Mama says I got it from my dad. She says he was smart, just not wise. There's a difference." "There is. Are you wise, Mason?" He thought about his life choices, the bottles in his recycling bin, the therapy he'd been avoiding. "I'm working on it." Near midnight, his phone buzzed with an email that made his blood run cold. It was from the hospital billing department, but this time it wasn't about money. Patient Ava Hart has been flagged for review by the Hospital Ethics Committee regarding continued treatment authorization. A meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. to determine if continued aggressive treatment is medically and financially justified given the patient's inability to pay and lack of insurance coverage. The implications were clear. They were considering discontinuing treatment, not because Ava didn't need it, but because she couldn't pay for it. Mason immediately forwarded the email to Rachel Morrison, Pat Holden, and James Washington adding his own message. "They're trying to dump her. We need all hands on deck tomorrow." Then he walked to the living room where Lily slept peaceful and unaware that tomorrow morning a room full of strangers would decide if her mother's life was worth saving based on her bank account balance. The system that was supposed to protect the vulnerable was about to show its teeth, and Mason realized with crystal clarity that he wasn't just fighting for Ava and Lily anymore. He was fighting against something much bigger and much crueler, the machinery that had decided some lives mattered more than others. Tomorrow's ethics committee meeting would be a war, and Mason intended to win. Mason didn't sleep. He spent the hours before dawn preparing for battle printing documents, making notes, calling in every favor he'd ever earned. By 5 a.m., he'd assembled a war council via group text: Rachel Morrison, Pat Holden, James Washington, and surprisingly his sister Kate, who'd caught a red-eye from Chicago. Kate arrived at his apartment at 6:30, looking immaculate despite the overnight flight. She took one look at him and shook her head. "You look like hell." "Thanks for coming," Mason said, ignoring the observation. "You're my baby brother. Of course I came." She glanced toward the living room where Lily was still sleeping. "Is that her?" "Yeah." Kate's expression softened. "She's tiny. She's been carrying the weight of the world. And now you are." It wasn't a question. Kate knew him too well. "Mason, what happens if we lose today? We won't. But if we do," Mason's jaw tightened, "then I empty my savings, take out loans, whatever it takes." "You can't save everyone." "I can save them." Lily woke to find a strange woman in the apartment, and Mason watched her immediately shift into defensive mode, the wariness of a child who'd learned not all adults were safe. "Lily, this is my sister Kate. She's a lawyer. She came to help your mom." Lily studied Kate carefully. "You look like Mason, but fancier." Kate laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise her. "That's the nicest way anyone's ever called me uptight." "What's uptight mean?" "It means I need to relax more," Kate said, then looked at Mason. "Something your temporary guardian could learn too." They dropped Lily at school with promises to update her immediately after the meeting. Mrs. Washington pulled Mason aside. "I heard about the ethics committee. It's disgusting." "You heard? Small town. Also, my husband works in hospital administration. He's appalled but says his hands are tied. The board's been pushing for stricter financial screening ever since the budget crisis." "Any advice? Make it public. The hospital hates bad press more than they hate losing money." Mason filed that away as they drove to Mercy General. The ethics committee met in a conference room on the executive floor, all polished wood and leather chairs, a stark contrast to the worn waiting rooms 5 floors below, where people like Ava fought for their lives. The committee consisted of 5 people: Dr. Harrison, the chief medical officer; Janet Torres, the financial administrator; Reverend Michael Adams, the hospital chaplain, Dr. Sorn; Emily Chen, a bioethicist; and surprisingly, Dr. Wexler, who gave Mason a subtle nod as they entered. "This is highly irregular," Dr. Harrison said immediately. "Ethics committee meetings are typically closed." "Not when you're discussing discontinuing life-saving treatment based on ability to pay," Kate interrupted, her courtroom voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm Catherine Cole, representing Ms. Hart's interests. This is Rachel Morrison, medical debt specialist, James Washington from Legal Aid, and Pat Holden from Child Protective Services." "And Officer Cole is here because—" Janet Torres asked, her tone suggesting she already knew and didn't approve. "As Lily Hart's temporary guardian and a witness to the family's situation," Mason said. Dr. Harrison shuffled papers unnecessarily. "Let's be clear about why we're here. Ms. Hart has received excellent care, but she has no insurance, no ability to pay, and continuing treatment could run into hundreds of thousands. Treatment that's medically necessary, Dr. Wexler interrupted. She's responding well to antibiotics. Discharging her now would be tantamount to— No one's talking about discharge, Janet Torres said quickly. We're discussing transitioning to a more sustainable treatment plan. You mean a cheaper one? Rachel Morrison said flatly. One that might not be as effective but costs less. The hospital has to balance many factors. Actually, Kate interrupted, pulling out a thick folder, the hospital is legally required to provide stabilizing treatment, regardless of ability to pay. EMTALA regulations are quite clear. She's been stabilized. Has she? Kate turned to Dr. Wexler. Doctor, in your medical opinion, is Ava Hart stable enough for discharge? Absolutely not. She needs at least 4 more days of IV antibiotics, possibly more. Discharging her now would likely result in readmission within 48 hours, if not worse. So we're not discussing whether treatment is necessary, Kate continued. We're discussing whether a young mother deserves to live despite being poor. Reverend Adams shifted uncomfortably. That's a rather inflammatory way to— Is it? Pat Holden spoke up. Because from where I sit, you're about to orphan a 6-year-old girl because her mother committed the crime of working 3 minimum wage jobs instead of having good insurance. The hospital has charity care obligations, Rachel added. Federal law requires you to provide a certain percentage of free care. What percentage did you provide last year? Janet Torres's face reddened. That's not relevant. 2.3%, Dr. Chen said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I looked it up this morning. The legal requirement is 6%. We're not even close. Those numbers don't account for— They account for exactly what they're supposed to, Kate said. This hospital received $42 million in tax breaks last year as a nonprofit. In exchange, you're supposed to provide charity care. You're not holding up your end of the bargain. Mason watched the committee members exchange glances, seeing the first cracks in their unified front. What exactly are you proposing? Dr. Harrison asked. Rachel stood. Full charity care forgiveness for Ava Hart's treatment. It's not just the right thing to do, it's legally required given her income level. That's a decision for the financial board. No, Kate said. It's a decision for this committee. You have the authority to recommend charity care. The only question is whether you will. And if we don't? Janet Torres asked, though her defiance was weakening. Then Officer Cole goes to the media, James Washington said calmly. Local cop saves dying mother hospital tries to throw her out. Imagine those headlines, especially with Christmas 2 weeks away. That's blackmail. That's advocacy, Kate corrected. Something this family's never had before. Dr. Wexler cleared her throat. May I add something? I've been Ava's primary physician. This woman walked into our ER literally dying because she couldn't afford to miss work. She chose between her health and feeding her child, and she chose her child. Every time. That's not neglect or irresponsibility, that's love under impossible circumstances. Pretty words don't pay bills, Janet Torres muttered. No, but federal funding does, Rachel said, pulling out her tablet. I've already filed for emergency Medicaid with retroactive coverage. Given Ava's condition, and income approval is virtually guaranteed. The hospital will get paid, just not immediately. How long? 60 to 90 days. Doctor. Harrison looked at Janet Torres, some silent communication passing between them. Then he said, We need to discuss this privately. Please wait outside. In the hallway, Mason's hands were shaking with suppressed rage. Kate noticed and pulled him aside. You okay? They're discussing whether she deserves to live, Kate, like it's a business decision. For them it is. That's the system we have. It's wrong. Yes, but we're going to win. How do you know? Kate smiled, but it was sharp predatory. Because Dr. Chen is on our side, the chaplain's conscience is bothering him, and Dr. Wexler would quit before letting them discharge Ava. Plus, I recorded the entire meeting. Is that legal? One-party consent state. Completely legal. She paused. Mason, after this is over, we need to talk about the larger problem. Which is, this will happen again. If not to Ava, then to someone else. The system needs to change. Before Mason could respond, the door opened. Dr. Harrison looked defeated. The committee recommends full charity care coverage for Ms. Hart's current treatment. Ms. Torres will process the paperwork today. Relief flooded through Mason so fast he almost sat down. But Kate wasn't done. And going forward, assuming Medicaid approval, her ongoing care will be covered. I want that in writing, Rachel said. Today. Janet Torres nodded stiffly and left presumably to begin the paperwork. As the committee dispersed, Dr. Wexler approached Mason. You did good today, but Ava still has a long recovery ahead. The pneumonia damaged her lungs. She'll need ongoing treatment medication, possibly physical therapy. We'll handle it, Mason said. I know you will. She paused. That little girl's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her, Mason said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. They went straight to Ava's room, where she was awake and anxious. Where's Lily? Is she okay? She's at school, Mason assured her. We just came from a meeting about your treatment. What kind of meeting? Suspicion and fear crossed her face. Are they sending me home? I'm not ready. No, Kate said gently. They're approving full charity care. You don't owe anything for this hospitalization. Ava stared at them, uncomprehending. That's not possible. The bill was handled, Mason said firmly. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Tears started streaming down Ava's face. I don't understand. Why would they? Because you deserve care, Pat said. Because being poor doesn't mean you deserve to die. But no buts, Rachel interrupted. We've also filed for emergency Medicaid and temporary disability benefits. You'll have income while you recover. Ava was sobbing now, great gasping sobs that had the monitors beeping. Dr. Wexler rushed in. What happened? Good news, Mason said. She's just overwhelmed. Dr. Wexler checked the monitors, then administered a mild sedative. You need to rest, Ava. Process this slowly. As Ava's breathing evened out, she grabbed Mason's hand. Lily, tell her I'm okay. Tell her Mama's going to be okay. I will. Outside the room, Kate pulled Mason aside. I have to catch a flight back to Chicago. But Mason, what you're doing here, it matters. And not just for them. What do you mean? I mean you've found something worth fighting for. Don't let it go. After Kate left for the airport, Mason sat in the hospital cafeteria with Pat, Rachel, and James, all of them exhausted but victorious. This is just the beginning, James said. We still need to deal with the housing situation, get Ava into job training programs, ensure Lily's educational needs are met. One victory at a time, Rachel said. But James is right. This family needs comprehensive support, not just crisis intervention. Mason's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Officer Cole, this is Nancy Chen from Channel 7 News. I heard about your situation with the Hart family. Would you be willing to share their story? He showed it to the others. Could be helpful, Pat said. Public pressure for systemic change. Or it could make them targets, James countered. Poor families who get attention sometimes face backlash. Mason thought about it, then typed back, I'll need to discuss with the family first. At 3 o'clock, he picked up Lily from school. She climbed into the car with barely contained energy. Is Mama okay? Did the meeting go good? Are they going to help? Yes to all three, Mason said, and watched her entire body relax. Really? They're not going to make her leave. Really? Your mom's going to get all the care she needs. Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, Mason Timothy's mom was at pickup. She said we're taking advantage of the system, that people like us are why taxes are so high. Mason's grip on the steering wheel tightened. What did you say? Nothing. But I wanted to say that Mama pays taxes on all 3 jobs, and that maybe if one job paid enough, she wouldn't need 3. She paused. But I didn't want to get in trouble again. That was very mature of you. Mama says being mature means knowing when fighting makes things better, and when it just makes things harder. They arrived at the hospital to find Ava sitting up looking stronger than she had in days. When she saw Lily, her whole face transformed. Baby girl. Lily ran into her arms, careful of the IV lines. Mason says you're going to be okay. Really okay. Really okay, Ava confirmed, meeting Mason's eyes over Lily's head. Thanks to a lot of people who decided we mattered. You've always mattered, Mason said. That evening, as they were leaving, Bill Morrison was waiting in the hospital lobby. The retired electrician looked excited. Mason, I've got news. That report I wrote about the building's heating system, someone leaked it to the housing authority. They're launching an investigation. The landlord could face serious fines, maybe even criminal charges. That's great, but what about the tenants? That's the best part. If the building's condemned, the city has to provide emergency relocation assistance. Better housing, same or lower rent. Mason felt another piece clicking into place. When will we know? Inspectors coming tomorrow. I'd say within a week every family in that building could have heat that actually works. After Bill left, Lily tugged on Mason's sleeve. Does that mean we might move? Would that be okay? She thought about it. As long as Mama and I are together, I don't care where we live. Back at Mason's apartment, as Lily did homework, Mason's phone rang. It was his partner, Rodriguez. Cole, you need to know something. There's been talk at the station. Some of the guys think you've gone too far with this family. Crossed the line from professional to personal. Since when is helping people crossing a line? Since you took in a kid, took time off work, and started fighting hospital boards. Look, I'm on your side, but Diaz is catching heat from upstairs. They think you're making the department look bad. By helping a family in crisis. By suggesting the system doesn't work. By implying we should do more than just enforce laws. You know how it is, Mason. We're supposed to maintain order, not challenge it. Mason looked at Lily, bent over her math homework tongue, poking out in concentration. Maybe it's time someone challenged it. Just be careful, brother. You're making waves and not everyone likes that. After dinner, as had become their routine, Mason helped Lily with her homework. She was struggling with a writing assignment. Write about someone who inspires you. I don't know what to write, she said, frustration clear in her voice. What about your mom? Everyone writes about their mom, Mrs. Peterson says to be original. Okay then, who inspires you? Lily chewed on her pencil, thinking. Then she started writing, covering the page so Mason couldn't see. She worked for 30 minutes, completely absorbed, before finally sliding the paper over to him. The person who inspires me is Officer Mason Cole, he read aloud. He didn't know us, but he helped anyway. He stayed when everyone else would have left. He fights for people who can't fight for themselves. He made me believe that strangers can become family, and that asking for help isn't weakness. He shows up even when it's hard. That's what heroes really do, they show up. Mason had to clear his throat twice before he could speak. Lily, Is it okay I can write about someone else if... It's perfect, he said, pulling her into a hug. But I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy trying to do the right thing. That's what Mama says about herself. Maybe that's what all heroes say. So later, after Lily was asleep, Mason sat in the dark living room thinking about everything that had happened in just 4 days. The Jenkins boy haunted him less, now replaced by something else. Hope, maybe, or purpose. His phone lit up with a text from Ava. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about everything you've done. Don't know how to say thank you." He typed back, "You don't need to. Just get better." Mason. The nurse told me what really happened in that meeting, how you all fought for me. No one's ever done that before. They should have. Maybe. But they didn't. You did. That matters. Before he could respond, another text came through. Lily's essay about you. She read it to me over the phone. She's right, you know. Heroes show up. Mason smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The housing inspection, ongoing treatment plans, navigating the complex web of social services. But tonight, a little girl slept safely on his couch. Her mother was healing, and a community was slowly awakening to the possibility that things could be different. The twist came at 11 p.m. just as Mason was about to go to bed. His phone rang Pat Holden, her voice tense. "Mason, we have a problem. A big one." "What happened?" "Lily's father. He's surfaced, and he's claiming he wants custody." Mason felt the floor drop out from under him. He abandoned them. He has no rights. He was never legally terminated as a parent. And if he pushes this with Ava in the hospital and their current living situation... Pat trailed off, but the implication was clear. Everything they'd fought for, everything they'd won, could be destroyed by a man who'd walked away 6 years ago and chosen this moment when they were most vulnerable to return. Mason looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world was about to be shaken again, and made a silent promise. Over his dead body, would anyone take her from Ava? The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Mason didn't tell Lily about her father. Not yet. He watched her eat breakfast the next morning, chattering about a science project due next week, and couldn't bring himself to shatter her newfound stability. But the weight of Pat's midnight call pressed on him like a stone in his chest. "You're quiet," Lily observed, surprising him with her perception. "Is Mama okay?" "She's fine. Better every day." "Then why do you look worried?" Before Mason could answer, his phone rang. "James Washington, the legal aid attorney. We need to meet now. Can you come to my office?" "I have to drop Lily at school first." "Bring her. She needs to know what's happening." Mason's stomach clenched. "James, trust me, it's better she hears it from us than on the playground." An hour later, they sat in James's cluttered office, Lily perched on the edge of a chair that swallowed her small frame. Pat Holden was already there, along with a woman Mason didn't recognize. "This is Sarah Winters," James said, "family law specialist. She's agreed to take Ava's case pro bono." "What case?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Is something wrong with Mama?" Sarah knelt down to Lily's level, her expression gentle, but serious. "Lily, do you remember your father?" The change in Lily was immediate. Her whole body tensed, her hands gripping the chair arms. "He left. Before I was born. Mama said he didn't want us." "Well, he's contacted the court. He says he wants to see you." "No." The word came out fierce adult. "He doesn't get to want us now." "I understand you're upset." "I'm not upset," Lily said, her 6-year-old voice carrying a lifetime of hurt. "I'm angry. Where was he when Mama worked 3 jobs? Where was he when we didn't have heat? Where was he when Mama got sick?" Mason moved to sit beside her, and she immediately pressed against him, seeking comfort. "We won't let anything bad happen," he promised. "Can you stop him?" Lily asked Sarah directly. "We're going to try, but I need to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" Lily nodded, her jaw set in a determination that reminded Mason painfully of Ava. Have you ever met your father? No. Has he ever sent letters, cards, presents, anything? Nothing. Mama says he signed away his rights when she was pregnant. Sarah and James exchanged glances. Signed away? That's what she told me. She said he gave her papers that said he didn't want to be a father. We need to see those papers, James said urgently. They could change everything. They're in Mama's important box, Lily said. Under her bed, with our birth certificates and stuff. Mason stood. I'll go get them now. I'm coming with you, Lily said. You have school. Please. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to be alone right now. Sarah nodded. Given the circumstances, one day won't hurt. The drive to Riverside Apartments was silent, except for Lily's occasional sniffles. When they entered the cold apartment, she went straight to her mother's room and pulled out a battered shoebox from under the bed. This is it, she said, handling it like a sacred artifact. Mama says everything important is in here. Mason opened it carefully. Birth certificates. Ava's high school diploma, a few photos, and at the bottom a folded document. His hands shook slightly as he read it. Son of a bitch, he muttered, then caught himself. Sorry. What is it? Your mom was right. He signed a voluntary relinquishment of parental rights, notarized and everything. So he can't take me. This makes it a lot harder for him to try. Back at James's office, Sarah examined the document with the intensity of a surgeon. This is good, really good. But what? Mason demanded. It was never filed with the court. Legally, it shows intent, but isn't binding without a judge's approval. Are you kidding me? Ava probably didn't know she needed to file it. She was 18 alone, pregnant. The system fails people like her by being too complicated to navigate without help. Pat spoke up. What does he want? The father. Why now? Sarah pulled out a file. Derek Morrison, 31, recently married wife, comes from money. They can't have children. Suddenly he remembers he has a daughter. He wants me because his new wife wants a kid. Lily's voice was flat understanding, too much for her age. We don't know that for sure, Pat said gently. Yes, we do, Lily said. That's exactly what's happening. Mason's phone rang, Ava calling from the hospital. The nurses told me, she said without preamble, her voice weak but furious. They heard from someone who heard from someone. Small hospital. Mason, he can't have her. He can't. We're handling it. Sarah Winters is taking your case. We have the relinquishment document. It's not enough, is it? We're going to make it enough. I need to see Lily, now. They spent the rest of the morning at the hospital, Ava holding Lily like she might disappear. Dr. Wexler had to intervene twice when Ava's monitors showed dangerous stress levels. You need to stay calm, she warned. Your body can't handle this kind of strain. How am I supposed to stay calm when someone's trying to take my baby? By trusting the people fighting for you, Dr. Wexler said, looking pointedly at Mason. You're not alone anymore. That afternoon, while Lily napped in the hospital family room, exhausted from emotional upheaval, the adults held a war council in the cafeteria. Derek Morrison filed for emergency custody, Sarah reported. Claims Ava is unfit, hospitalized, unstable housing can't provide. That's bullshit, Mason said. It's also temporarily true, James said grimly. On paper, Ava looks bad. Single mom, sick, poor child in temporary guardianship. Derek's married, stable income, nice house in the suburbs. So what do? We fight dirty, Sarah said with a smile that reminded Mason of a shark. Mr. Morrison has 2 DUIs, a domestic violence call his wife refused to press charges on, and he's been fired from 3 jobs in 5 years. He's also behind on child support for another child from a previous relationship. He has another kid he abandoned. Pat's voice was disgusted. In Tennessee. Hasn't seen the boy in 3 years. Can we use that? We can destroy him with it. But first we need to establish Ava's fitness. That means stable housing income and medical clearance. The housing inspection is today, Mason said. If the building's condemned, they'll get emergency relocation. And I've fast-tracked the disability benefits, Pat added. Should have approval within days. What about medical clearance? All eyes turned to Dr. Wexler, who'd joined them. I can discharge her in 2 days if she continues improving, but she'll need ongoing care medications follow-ups. All covered by emergency Medicaid, Rachel Morrison said, appearing with a folder. Just got approved. Retroactive 3 months ongoing for a year minimum. Mason felt hope stirring. So we can do this. If everything goes perfectly, Sarah warned. One setback and Derek could win emergency custody. And once he has her... He's not getting her, Mason said firmly. Whatever it takes. The housing inspector arrived at Riverside Apartments at 3 p.m., accompanied by Bill Morrison and, surprisingly, a news crew from Channel 7. Nancy Chen, the reporter who'd contacted Mason, had gotten wind of the story. This is bigger than one family, she told Mason as her crew set up. This is about systemic failure, about how poverty becomes a trap. The inspector's findings were damning. No adequate heating, black mold, electrical hazards, water damage, suggesting long-term roof leaks. The building was immediately condemned, all tenants given 7 days to relocate with emergency assistance from the city. Where will they go? Nancy asked the inspector on camera. The city has partnerships with several properties. Comparable units working utilities, same or lower rent. And the landlord facing criminal charges for negligent endangerment. As the news crew interviewed other tenants, Bill Morrison pulled Mason aside. The custodial staff at the hospital took up a collection, he said, handing over an envelope. For the Hart family, it's not much, but... Mason opened it. $800 in mixed bills clearly contributed in small amounts. A note inside read, "From people who understand, for Ava and Lily." This is... Mason couldn't finish. It's what neighbors do, Bill said simply. Or what they should do. That evening, Derek Morrison made his move. He showed up at the hospital with a lawyer and a court order demanding immediate visitation with Lily. Mason intercepted them in the lobby. She doesn't know you. You can't just walk in. I have rights, Derek said. He was handsome in a superficial way, designer clothes and perfect teeth, but his eyes were cold. She's my daughter. You signed away your rights. That paper means nothing without court approval. My lawyers explained it all. I made a mistake 6 years ago. I'm trying to fix it. By traumatizing a little girl who's already been through hell. Derek's lawyer. A thin man with predatory eyes stepped forward. Officer Cole, you have no standing here. Mr. Morrison has every right to establish a relationship with his child. Over my dead body, I dead. That can be arranged, the lawyer said smoothly. Legally speaking, interference with parental rights is a serious matter. Sarah Winters arrived then, slightly out of breath. Mr. Morrison, Mr. Graves, I represent Ava Hart. Sarah, Graves said with false warmth. Didn't know you'd fallen this far taking charity cases. Didn't know you'd fallen this far representing deadbeat fathers trying to kidnap children. Kidnap is a strong word, legally actionable even. Truth is a complete defense, Sarah shot back. She turned to Derek. You want to see Lily file proper papers. Go through the court. But you're not walking into that room and traumatizing that child. The court order says you can request visitation. It doesn't grant it. Learn to read Graves. Security had noticed the confrontation and approached. Is there a problem here? These men are trying to gain unauthorized access to a patient's room, Mason said. We have a court order, Graves protested. The security chief looked at the paper, then at Sarah. Ma'am, the order requires proper notice and coordination through CPS. They have neither. Then I'll have to ask you gentlemen to leave. Derek's face twisted with anger. This isn't over. No, Sarah agreed. It's just beginning. And Mr. Morrison, we know about Tennessee. We know about the domestic violence calls. We know about all of it. Derek paled. You can't. I can and I will. Walk away now or I'll destroy you in court. Your choice. After they left, Sarah slumped against the wall. That was mostly bluff. We need more ammunition. Then we get it, Mason said. Whatever you need. What I need is a miracle. The emergency custody hearing is in 3 days. If Ava's not discharged, housed, and stable by then, she will be. That night, Mason found Lily crying silently in the hospital bathroom, trying to muffle her sobs with a towel. Hey, he said gently, talk to me. What if he takes me? What if I have to go live with him? That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. Adults always promise things they can't control. Mason sat on the bathroom floor, his back against the wall. After a moment, Lily joined him. You're right, he admitted. I can't promise that. But I can promise that every single person who cares about you will fight to prevent it. Your mom, Miss Sarah. Pat, James, we're all fighting for you. Why? Lily asked. Why do you all care so much? Mason thought about it. Because you and your mom remind us why we do these jobs. Not for the paperwork or the procedures, but for people. Real people who deserve better than what the system gives them. Mama says the system's broken. She's right. But sometimes broken things can be fixed, or at least made better. They sat in silence for a moment before Lily said, If he takes me, will you still visit? If he takes you, I'll never stop fighting to get you back. Promise. That I can promise. The next morning brought good news and bad. The good Ava was approved for discharge the following day. The bad, Derek had hired a private investigator who was digging into everyone involved in the case. He's looking for dirt, Sarah explained. On you, Mason. On me, on everyone helping Ava. Let him look, Mason said. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something. The question is whether he can find it and twist it. That afternoon, Lily returned to school needing normalcy. Mason used the time to apartment hunt with Pat and James, looking at the emergency housing options. They found a 2-bedroom unit in a better part of town, close to Lily's school, with working heat and appliances. It's perfect, Pat said. The rent's actually $50 less than what they're paying now. How is that possible? Subsidized housing for families in crisis. The program's been around for years, but people don't know about it unless they have advocates. So Ava could have had this all along if someone had just told her, Welcome to the poverty trap, James said bitterly. Resources exist, but they're hidden behind bureaucracy and gatekeepers. They signed the lease that afternoon, using the money from the hospital custodial staff for the deposit. The apartment would be ready tomorrow, just in time for Ava's discharge. That evening, something beautiful happened. When they arrived at the hospital, Ava's room was full of people. Bill Morrison and other tenants from Riverside Apartments, Dr. Wexler and several nurses, parents from Lily's school who'd heard the story. Even Mrs. Washington, the principal, was there. What's happening? Ava asked, overwhelmed. Community, Bill Morrison said simply. We've all pitched in. Furniture for your new place, clothes for Lily, grocery cards, even some toys. I can't accept. Yes, you can, Mrs. Washington interrupted. That's what we're trying to teach you, Ava. Accepting help isn't weakness. It's human. Lily stood in the middle of it all, tears streaming down her face. All these people came for us. All these people came for you, Mason corrected, because you were brave enough to ask for help. Nancy Chen, from Channel 7, appeared in the doorway. "I'm not here to intrude," she said quickly. "But if you're willing, Ava, I'd like to tell your story. The real story. It might help other families like yours." Ava looked at Mason, then at Lily, then at all the people crowded into her small hospital room. "Okay," she said. "Tell them. Tell them how the system fails families like ours, but also how regular people can make a difference." The interview aired that night. Ava still weak but fierce, talking about choosing between medicine and food. Lily brave beyond her years, describing running into the cold to find help. Mason reluctant, but determined, explaining how one child's plea had changed his perspective on everything. But the most powerful moment was when Ava looked directly at the camera and said, "I'm not special. There are thousands of mothers like me working themselves to death trying to keep their children safe and fed. We don't need pity. We need change. Living wages, affordable health care, accessible resources. We need a system that helps instead of punishes." The response was immediate. The station's phones rang non-stop. Donations poured in. Other families shared their stories. The mayor's office called, promising to investigate systemic failures in housing and social services. But Derek Morrison saw it too. The next morning, the day of Ava's discharge, and the day before the custody hearing, his lawyer filed an emergency motion. They claimed the media attention was harmful to Lily, that Ava was exploiting her daughter's trauma for sympathy, that the entire situation proved she was an unfit mother. "It's desperation," Sarah said, but she looked worried. "He's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks." "Will any of it? Depends on the judge. We got Harriet Chen, which is good. She's fair, cares about children's welfare over technicalities. But she also hates media circuses." Ava was discharged at noon, still weak, but determined. When she walked into the new apartment for the first time, supported by Mason on one side and Lily on the other, she broke down completely. "It's warm," she sobbed. "It's warm and clean and safe." The neighbors from Riverside had worked miracles. Furniture filled the rooms. The refrigerator was stocked. Lily's new bedroom was decorated with all her drawings from the old apartment, plus new books and toys. "Welcome home," Bill Morrison said, handing over the keys. That night, their last, before the hearing, Mason stayed with them. Ava was too anxious to sleep, pacing, despite her weakness. "What if we lose?" she kept asking. "What if they take her?" "We won't lose," Mason said, though his own doubts gnawed at him. "You don't know that." "No," he admitted. "But I know that little girl loves you more than anything. And I know you've done everything humanly possible to keep her safe. That has to count for something. Does it in court, or does money and marriage certificates matter more?" Before Mason could answer, Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Mama, I'm scared." Ava immediately went to her, wrapping her in a hug. "Me too, baby. But we're together right now. That's what matters." "Mason." Lily looked at him. "Will you tell the judge about us? About how Mama takes care of me even when she's sick? About how she reads to me every night, even when she can barely keep her eyes open?" "I'll tell them everything." "Tell them about the beach day," Lily said suddenly. "The good one." Ava smiled through her tears. "You remember that we took the bus for 2 hours to get to the lake because you wanted me to see water. You packed sandwiches and we pretended it was the ocean. You said someday we'd see the real ocean, but until then we had imagination." "That was a good day," Ava whispered. "We've had lots of good days," Lily said firmly. "Even when things were bad, you made good days. That's what matters, right?" The custody hearing was at 9 a.m. The courtroom was packed, media community members, other families who'd been following the story. Derek Morrison sat with his lawyer and his wife, a perfectly styled woman who kept dabbing at her eyes with a tissue despite no visible tears. Judge Chen entered, her expression stern. "I want to be clear, this is a child custody hearing, not a publicity event. I will have order in my courtroom." Sarah presented their case first. Ava's devotion, her sacrifices, the signed relinquishment document. Derek's history of abandonment, his other abandoned child, his DUIs, the domestic violence calls. Then, Graves, Derek's lawyer, presented theirs. Ava's poverty, her hospitalization, Lily being in temporary guardianship, the exploitation of media attention. Derek's recent stability and marriage, his wife's inability to have children, naturally, their beautiful home in the suburbs. "Your Honor," Graves said smoothly, "we're not saying Ms. Hart is a bad person, but love isn't enough. Children need stability, opportunity, advantages that Mr. Morrison can provide." Advantages. Sarah stood. Like abandoning them, like signing away rights when things get difficult. People change. Do they? Then why hasn't Mr. Morrison seen his son in Tennessee in 3 years? The judge raised her hand for silence. "I want to hear from the child." "Your Honor." Graves protested. "She's only 6, and remarkably articulate from what I've seen. Lily, would you like to speak?" Lily stood Mason's hand on her shoulder for support. "Yes, Your Honor." "Tell me about living with your mother." Lily took a breath. "It's hard sometimes. We don't have a lot of money. Sometimes Mama doesn't eat so I can. Sometimes it's cold. But Mama loves me every second of every day. She works 3 jobs to keep us together. She teaches me to be strong and kind and brave. She says being poor isn't shameful, that working hard is honorable, that family isn't about money but about showing up." "And what about your father?" "I don't have a father," Lily said clearly. "I have a man who provided genetic material and then left. A father stays. A father shows up when things are hard. A father doesn't wait until his new wife wants a baby to remember he already has one." The courtroom was dead silent. "If I ruled that you should spend time with Mr. Morrison?" "I'd run away," Lily said simply. "Every time. I'd run back to Mama. Because that's where I belong." Judge Chen nodded slowly. "Mr. Morrison, do you have anything to say?" Derek stood his practiced speech ready. "Your Honor, I made mistakes, but I'm trying to correct them. I can give Lily opportunities, private school college funds, travel experiences her mother could never provide." "Can you give her a mother who worked herself into pneumonia to keep her fed?" the judge asked. "Can you give her the security of knowing she's loved unconditionally, not as a consolation prize for your wife's infertility?" Derek's face reddened. "That's not, isn't it? You've known where Lily was for 6 years. You only appeared when your circumstances changed. That's not parenting, Mr. Morrison. That's shopping." She turned to Ava. "Ms. Hart, you've been through extraordinary challenges, but I see a woman who's done everything possible for her child despite impossible circumstances. I see a community that's rallied around you. I see a child who's remarkably well-adjusted despite hardships." "Your Honor," Graves interrupted, "the law. The law prioritizes the best interests of the child. Lily's best interests are clearly with her mother. Mr. Morrison's petition for custody is denied. The voluntary relinquishment, while not properly filed, shows clear intent. I'm accepting it now retroactively. Mr. Morrison's parental rights are formally terminated." The courtroom erupted. Ava collapsed into Mason's arms, sobbing. Lily jumped up and down, then ran to hug her mother. Derek stormed out with his wife and lawyer, threatening appeals that everyone knew would go nowhere. Furthermore, Judge Chen continued when order was restored. I'm recommending this family for continued support services. Ms. Hart, you've proven you'll do anything for your daughter. It's time the system did something for you. Outside the courthouse, Nancy Chen was broadcasting live. In a victory for families everywhere, the court has ruled that love dedication and community support matter more than money. The Hart family's story has sparked a citywide conversation about poverty, single parenthood, and systemic change. But Mason wasn't listening to the reporter. He was watching Ava and Lily holding each other and crying and laughing simultaneously. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister, Kate. Saw the news? Proud of you, little brother. Mom and Dad would be too. Mason? Lily broke free from her mother and ran to him. We won! We really won! He caught her and spun her around, her laughter bright as sunshine. You won, he corrected. You and your mom. No, Ava said, approaching them. We all won. Together. 3 weeks later, on Christmas morning, Mason arrived at the Hart apartment with presents and breakfast. The place had been transformed into a real home furniture, donated by the community decorations made by Lily at school, the smell of something baking in the oven. You're early, Ava said, but she was smiling. She looked healthier, having gained weight and color. The disability benefits and Medicaid had given her time to actually recover. Lily texted me at 5 a.m., Mason laughed. Something about Santa and pancakes being a medical emergency. I said Mason and pancakes, Lily protested, appearing in Christmas pajamas. You promised to teach me your secret ingredient. Butter. The secret is always butter. As they cooked breakfast together, Ava told him her news. I got accepted into the nursing assistant program at the community college. It's covered by a workforce development grant Pat helped me find. 18 months, and I'll have a career, not just jobs. That's amazing, Ava. It's a chance, she corrected. A real chance. After breakfast and presents, books for Lily, warm clothes for Ava, and a one hero mug for Mason that made him tear up. They sat together on the couch watching Lily play with her new toys. Mason, Ava said quietly, I need to say something. You don't need to. Yes, I do. You saved us. Not just that night, but every day since. You showed us that people can be good, that help exists, that we matter. You've always mattered. But you made us believe it. She paused. Lily asked me something yesterday. She wanted to know if you could be her official godfather. I know it's a lot to ask. Yes, Mason said immediately. Absolutely, yes. Lily overheard and launched herself at him. Really? You'll be my godfather forever. Forever, he promised. That evening, as snow began to fall over Riverton, Mason helped tuck Lily into bed in her warm, safe room. Her walls were covered with new drawings, including one of the three of them labeled My Family. Mason, she said sleepily. Remember when I asked you to follow me home? I'll never forget it. That was the scariest night of my life, but also the best, because that's when everything started changing. You changed everything, Lily. You were brave enough to ask for help. And you were brave enough to give it, she countered. Mama says bravery is contagious. One person stands up and others remember they can too. As Mason prepared to leave, Ava stopped him at the door. You know you don't have to keep checking on us, right? We're okay now. I know, Mason said, but I'm not checking on you. I'm visiting family. Ava hugged him, then the first real hug she'd given him. Thank you for following her home that night. Thank you for raising a child brave enough to ask. Walking to his car, Mason's phone rang. Sergeant Diaz. Cole thought you should know. The Jenkins boy Marcus. He saw the news story about the Hart family. He reached out to the station, wants to talk to you. Mason's heart clenched. Is he okay? He's in a program now. Getting clean, getting help. Says your story with the hearts made him realize someone actually gave a damn. He wanted to thank you. After ending the call, Mason sat in his car for a moment, looking back at the warm lights of the Hart apartment. Through the window he could see Ava reading to Lily just as she did every night, but now, without exhaustion weighing her down. 6 weeks ago, a little girl had pounded on his patrol car window, begging him to follow her home. That single moment of desperation had created ripples that changed everything, not just for one family, but for a community, a city, maybe even a broken system starting to remember its purpose. His radio crackled with a call, another crisis somewhere in Riverton, another family needing help. But now Mason knew the truth that Lily had taught him. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the most important message. Sometimes a child's plea can wake up a whole community. Sometimes following someone home means finding your own way back to what matters. As he drove toward the next call, snow falling steadily, now Mason thought about heroes and how Lily was right. They weren't the people in capes or uniforms. They were the mothers working 3 jobs, the children brave enough to ask for help, the communities that remembered how to care, and yes, sometimes the cops who chose to stay when protocol said leave. The city sparkled under its fresh coat of snow, hiding its struggles temporarily under pristine white. But beneath that deceptive beauty, real change was happening. The mayor had announced a poverty task force. The hospital had expanded its charity care program. 3 other families from Riverside Apartments had been connected with resources they never knew existed. All because one little girl had run into the cold and asked a stranger to follow her home. Mason's phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Mama's asleep. I'm writing a story about us for school. The title is How We Saved Each Other. Is that good? He typed back, It's perfect. And it was. Because in the end, that's what had happened. A desperate child, a dying mother, and a haunted cop had somehow saved each other, proving that even in the darkest winter, human kindness could bloom like flowers through concrete, stubborn and beautiful, and absolutely unstoppable. The story of Lily Hart didn't end that Christmas. She would grow up to become a social worker inspired by Pat Holden. Ava would become a registered nurse, eventually running a clinic for low-income families. Mason would leave patrol work to head a new community liaison program connecting families in crisis with resources before tragedy struck. But that night, that Christmas night with snow falling over Riverton, they were simply a family forged by crisis and bonded by love, proof that sometimes the universe conspires to put the right people in the right place at exactly the right moment. Sometimes all it takes is someone brave enough to say, "Please follow me home."